So look, if you've clicked onto this video, it's probably because you want to either be a millionaire or you at least want some financial freedom. The problem with that though is that we've been told one of three things. The first being that we have to work at least 40 years in a job that we hate. Number two, we have to save every single cent and we can't get an extra coffee here or there. And the third thing that we're told is you kind of just have to wait until retirement. And unfortunately, if you're a woman, you get an extra layer of just terrible advice. Number one being that you have to marry rich, or that you have to focus on your family now and worry about the money later. And the last thing that you're told is that doing anything in the business world is too risky. You should rather just save the money and work a simple receptionist job. But what if I told you that becoming a female millionaire or a millionaire at all is easier than you think as soon as you stop taking outdated advice? And if we're being completely honest, I know that we're probably the same, where we don't want to wait until we're 65 to get rich. And the best part is that getting rich or finding financial freedom isn't complicated. It's not luck, it's not some special set of skills, and it's definitely nothing to do with any Wall Street jargon. It's way simpler than you make it out to be, and it starts with understanding money first. It might sound daunting, and I'm not going to give you the simple one-on-one stuff. I'm actually going to give you practical knowledge on what that means. And take it from me, where just a few years ago, we were in a terrible position financially, and I'd never been exposed to financial wealth or freedom at all. I came from a home where we had to skip some meals because we couldn't afford some of them. And, sometimes I would just have to skip school because we couldn't get the petrol to take me there. It got so bad that we eventually lost our house as soon as I finished school. So I know what it's like to be in a position where you don't know the answer, but the best part is that I just followed a simple blueprint and I got there. Now, the first thing that I actually did was I just stopped thinking as an employee and I started thinking as a business owner. Because to me, it didn't make sense that number one, I had to get a job. Number two, I had to work at it for 40 years or so. And number three, I just couldn't even spend extra on a coffee or so because I had to penny pinch. To me, that just did not make sense and it didn't look like the financial freedom that I wanted to achieve. And I realized one important thing when I looked at all of these gurus, and it's that they do not trade time for money. What they're actually doing is they're finding assets or building assets that pay them regardless of the time they spend on them. And look, the number one way that I found to do this is a mindset shift. I changed my thinking from thinking about how I could spend time to make money, and I flipped it to how can I multiply my money. And it's an important distinguishing fact. And here's the way that you can do it as well. Number one, I built a business. So what you need to do is you need to find an asset that you can create right now. And you don't necessarily need capital. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. All you need is the right vehicle to take you to where you need to go. And an asset is not necessarily a property or an expensive investment. It can be as simple as something that generates you revenue every single month, like a business. And here's a quick tip for you, by the way. I had no money starting out and I tried every business under the sun that you can imagine. And the one that worked best for me is a service-based business. And I personally started an agency. Now that's something that I actually teach in a one-on-one mentorship, but I don't sell courses. So I don't want you to go and think that this is for you if you really don't have the time commitment, but it is an option for you, and I'll leave a link in the description. But I recommend that you find a vehicle that works best for you based on your current skills and what you know right now. The second thing that you can go ahead and do to change the shift from trading your time for money and instead multiplying it is make small investments and start early. So it doesn't matter what age you are and if you think that you have enough money or not. What you can start doing is you can start investing small. I personally started with gold because it was the cheapest investment that I could find, but it was the most reliable. Consistently, year over year, it always increases in value. So I was buying gold coins for as little as $100 a pop. And to this day, it's probably gone up about 100%. So that is just a small investment that you could start making, but you can go and do your own research. You also don't need a ton of money to get started with stocks. You just need to do your research on that. Now, the other shift that I made that changed my life is I realized that I needed to start to own assets and I needed to ignore liabilities. So I didn't get my own property until I was much older and in a better position. I knew that that was considered a liability because I would have to pay towards it every single month. It's different if you get a property and you can immediately monetize it, but I wasn't in the position to do that. So instead, I was investing in things that actually mattered. And by the way, an asset doesn't necessarily have to be a tangible thing. Another asset that you should be investing into to change your mindset and to change your life is actually coaching in some way. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to find someone that already has the blueprint for you and has already done it, which is exactly what I do to this day. And you'll dramatically ease the process of creating a success because you have the blueprint to do it instead of trying to figure it out years over years. Now, once I made this mindset shift and I started to do these minute things like starting a business, like figuring out what I can invest in, the next step was actually finding a high income skill. Now, this is something that I could not recommend more. This should be the number one priority in your life. Every single person was brought onto this earth with the same set of skills and the same set of knowledge. There is nothing differentiating the wealthy from who you are right now. The only difference is not luck and it is not education. It actually happens to be the skills that they developed, and you have equal access to it as well. So what I mean by this is you should find something that can pay you top dollar because it is a well in demand skill. And a few of those would be, for example, copywriting. Another one would be email marketing, paid ads, and for example, closing, so high ticket closing. These are all skills that you can learn on YouTube. And if you're not familiar with them, I have created other videos about it, but you can go search on YouTube for one of them, or at least search your skill and ask ChatGPT what you could do to monetize it. But you need to find something that's high in demand and that you can get paid well for. And that's the beauty of a high income skill, is it's accessible to anyone. Because for me, I did not have the money to go to get a tertiary education. I just had to learn everything myself. And like I said, we are not brought onto this earth with these skills. So I just had to figure it out. And I personally use courses and coaching, and I also use YouTube. But you can find your own places. You can find forums. You can go and ask ChatGPT to guide you. But the best place is a complete free resource that is YouTube. So look, there's one main takeaway from this point that I want you to remember is that the millionaires are not the ones with the most talent. They're the ones who can sell their skills the most. And that's something that you can easily adopt as well. So once I found my high income skill and I honed in on it, I realized that I now needed to find a way to create an income from it and to scale it. And that is the next step in the process. There is one fact that I can tell you for sure, and it's that finding financial freedom or creating financial freedom has never happened because you've traded your time for money. There is no way that people have become wealthy in that way. And if you think about it, we all get the same amount of time in the day. And that's what confused me in the beginning. I couldn't understand how people had reached these ultimate levels of wealth. Now, there's one unfortunate simple fact that I can tell you for sure, and it's that you will not reach financial freedom by trading your time for money. And that's the one thing that always confused me when I first started out. I would see these gurus and these wealthy people that had the same amount of time in the day, but for some reason, I was way set back compared to where they were. So I knew it wasn't a time thing, and I knew it wasn't an educational thing because so many of them were not smarter than me. I mean, there's 13-year-olds making millions on YouTube, so there had to be something else. And I realized that for me to escape my current situation of not having that freedom. So the first thing that I did is I found a freelancing side hustle that I could actually turn into an income. And once I had that freelancing side hustle, I turned it into a business once I got good enough at it. And I found a way to get higher paying clients and turn it into something that was actually tangibly a business and an asset to me. And once I had that in place, the next step was simple. I just had to find a way to automate it so that my time wasn't being exchanged and I could scale it with the same amount of hours every single day. And if you think about it this way, a freelancer is capped at about 40 hours a week and they make about $100 an hour, let's say. Whereas if you take a business owner, they also have the same access to 40 hours a week, but that's times 10 because they have automated systems that do it for them, and they're making about $10,000 an hour if you figure out the way that it's kind of reverse engineered, if you take their monthly income and divide it by the hours that they worked. And it's funny because I thought I had it all figured out having this simple system where I'd now turned an income into a business and I'd found a way to automate it. But I also found that I was still working hard and I felt like I was reached at a threshold of my income. So that brought me to realizing something else that none of the gurus talk about, and it's leverage. And this is exactly why the rich get richer and why we seem to be constantly fighting this uphill battle without making the same amount of progress. So when I really looked into it, I realized that there were two kinds of millionaires. Number one is business owners who make money fast, and then there are investors who make money while they sleep. And you kind of have to choose which one you want to be, or you can be a hybrid of them. But there's a specific way that these millionaires are made, and it's through leverage. So when I looked a little bit deeper, I realized that the way that all of these millionaires are making most of their money with leverage is through one of three things. Number one, they're constantly buying new assets that generate new income streams. And trust me, this only comes much later. It's not something you have to worry about right now. But it is very important to remember that multiple income streams is actually what creates the financial freedom. The second thing I realized is that they're all investing. So they're putting their money into assets that generate them money while they sleep. And that is not necessarily property, it's index funds, it's stocks, it's crypto, or whatever it is, but with educated decisions that are safe. So the way that you might invest in a meme coin is not the same kind of safety that you'll get from just investing in Bitcoin. Likewise, it goes for any kind of stocks. And the last way that they're actually making their money is they're constantly reinvesting into their business. So while in the short term, they're kind of shorter on cash, in the long term, they have compounding and multiplying revenue because they've doubled down on their automations. Instead of sending out 100 cold emails a day, they're sending out 1,000 cold emails a day, therefore attracting more clients. So they are constantly reinvesting into better systems, into better employees, into better talent. And they're in that way accessing a different playing field than what everyone else can. That's why the rich get richer, is because they're making sure their money works for them. So the real secret that I learned is that it's not about how much you earn, it's about how much you're able to keep and grow your financial income. Because if you think about it, the lowest employee in the company could be making about $2,000 per month, or maybe $1,000 per month. And if they're saving $900 of that $2,000 or $1,000 of that $2,000, but the person next to them that's earning $10,000 spends $9,500, that person who's at the lower form but keeping more has more leverage in life, and they are able to use that for assets later down the line. And that is such an important fact that I realized is I was burning myself thin because I was spending more than I was making some months, or at the very least, I was just spending everything I was making and keeping the profit margins low. So I couldn't use leverage to scale faster than I wanted to. And I realized the reason why I was constantly running myself thin and the reason I didn't grasp any of these aspects before is because I needed to master the psychology of money. And that was the next step in the process. I had come from a broken background, so I didn't have an idea of what wealth was. I didn't know how to keep it, and I didn't know how to make it work for me. So I had spent somewhat of 7 years trying to figure it out and understand what was going on, until I came to the conclusion that I needed to shift my mindset. Number one, I needed to accept that I could be a millionaire. I could have this income come towards me, and I actually needed to understand and accept it. And there's a book that speaks really well about it, which I highly recommend that you read, which is Psycho-Cybernetics. In this book, it essentially talks about how our underlying beliefs about ourselves is the reason why we succeed in life or we don't, because we always prove ourselves to be true. If you're a broken person with no financial education, and you constantly think that you're not worthy of becoming a millionaire because it doesn't exist in your world, you're going to constantly prove yourself to be true. But if you rewrite the script and you genuinely teach yourself to believe in wealth, it'll work for you. I remember when I was first starting out, I had no concept of money, and it always made me uncomfortable to have a lot of it. So I had to change my mindset by surrounding myself in environments that actually made me realize how much of an abundance there was and how worthy I was of it. And some of it was just a case of going for coffee in luxury hotels and restaurants. So I couldn't necessarily afford the food there, but coffee in that and Starbucks is about the same. So I figured I would surround myself by the kind of people, see what they do, get comfortable in those environments, and stop feeling like such an outsider. The other thing I went to do is I actually went to a Rolex store very early on before I ever got my first Rolex, and I tried it on. And I remember just saying to them, I'm not coming in, I'm not going to buy one, but I just want to try it on because I'm looking to get it for myself eventually. And they let you do it. So when I saw that on my arm, I started to really teach myself that I was worthy and it was possible. You would be surprised by how small steps like that will make a big difference. So that's when I really realized the true key to all of this is that millionaires are not millionaires because they had luck or they had the best skills or that they had the best opportunities come their way. It was actually a matter of belief. That was the turning key in every one of their lives. Because quite simply, we do not get what we deserve. We get what we think we deserve, because what we believe we deserve, we start acting in that way. And once we start acting like it, we will make the decisions to get there and we slowly make the progress towards that goal. So if you believe that you're going to be the greatest author of all time, you're naturally going to find habits that suit that passion and suit that purpose. You're going to start putting them into play without even thinking about it. It works the same way with money. You need to believe that you're worthy of it, that you can control it, that it can come into your life and that it is abundant. Don't grasp onto it. Don't think that you have to penny pinch. You can have financial freedom regardless of where you came from. So look, before you know it, you're probably going to be in a position where you do have financial freedom. As long as you take these steps and as long as you understand that it is available to everyone, you need a skill, you need to change your mindset, and you need to make the necessary steps to get there. But I've pretty much given you the blueprint. So with that being said, I hope I see you on the other side, and I'll see you in the next one.